Reading from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse 3, chapter 4, titled Transcendental Knowledge. Sayavyang maya te tya yoga prakto puratana bhakto sime sakha cheti rahasyam hi ata uttamam saevyam maya te tya yoga prakto puratana bhakto sime sakha cheti rahasyam he ita attamam. Any Prabhujis or Matajis? Saevayam mayate adya
Yoga prokto puratana
bhakto sime sakha cheti rahasyam hai ita uttamam. It's okay. Sa, the same. Eva, certainly. Ayam, this. Maya, by me. Te, unto you. Adya, today. Yoga, the science of yoga. Prakta, spoken. Puratana, very old. Bhakta, devotee. Asi, you are. Me, my. Sakha, friend. Cha, also. Iti, therefore. Rahasyam, mystery. He, certainly. Etat, this. Uttamam, transcendental. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. That very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you because you are my devotee as well as my friend and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of this science. Mataji, you want to read the purport?
There are two classes of men, namely the devotee and the demon. The Lord selected Arjuna as the recipient of this great science, owing to his being a devotee of the Lord. But for the demon, it is not possible to understand this great mysterious science. There are a number of editions of this great book of knowledge. Some of them have commentaries by the devotees and some of them have commentaries by the demons. Commentation by the devotees is real, whereas that of demons is useless. Arjuna accepts Sri Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and commentary on the Gita following in the footsteps of Arjuna is real devotional service to the course of this great science. This demonic, however, do not accept Lord Krishna as he is. Instead, they uncover something about Krishna and mislead generally the readers from the path of Krishna's instructions. Here is a warning about such misleading paths. One should try to follow the disciple succession from Arjuna and thus be benefited by this great science of Srimad Bhagavatam.
Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namo. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute. तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमो। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवास आदि गौर भक्त वृंद। Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So thank you so much. This is once again a very powerful verse spoken by Bhagavan Uvacha right from the beginning of chapter 4. Starts with Bhagavan Uvacha. That means the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan, is speaking. And he starts the transcendental knowledge with the verse, Imam Vivasvate Yogam. How he spoke about this Bhagavad Gita to, Suryadev. And Suryadev told it to Vivasvate Manu. And then Manu told it to his son, Ikshaku. And how that translated disciplic in one after another. Then the second verse, which is one of the top 108 powerful verses which we have chosen for our Bhakti Vriksha. So second one starts with Evam Parampara Praptam. How the devotional service and the transcendental knowledge can only be understood through Evam Parampara Praptam. Only through Parampara, not through anything else. And then in verse 3, Krishna is explaining Bhakto Sime Sakha Cheti. And he also is mentioning about this is a rahasya. And we're going to tap onto this very strong points Krishna is making, and we're going to discuss that today. So Krishna is explaining rahasya. What is rahasya? Rahasya is mystery, right? Rahasya is something very confidential. So whenever there is something confidential, whenever there is something which is not understood by many people, it is generally not told to anybody and everybody. Otherwise people, Hare Krishna. Otherwise it will be misunderstood by many people. So generally when you speak about Bhagavad Gita, what is Bhagavad Gita? Bhagavad Gita is, if you think about Bhagavad Gita in the constitution of our material body, it is mentioned that it is made up of 5 gross elements, right? And it's mentioned in chapter 7, verse 4, where it starts with Bhumi Appa. That means it starts with earth, water, fire, air and ether, right? So, and then in the same verse, chapter 7, verse 4, Krishna mentions about the subtle body. The subtle body is mind, intelligence, false ego. So whenever we talk about the constitution of our body, what is the study of body? It is nothing but medicine, if you think about it. The study of body is medicine. It's a science. Bhagavad Gita is nothing but science. It is only science. Likewise, whenever you talk about the mind, intelligence, false ego, what are we talking about? We're talking about probably psychiatry, where the mind is being discussed, why people behave differently. That's also science. So the science of Bhagavad Gita, the science of what Krishna is speaking is very interesting, and it is very filled with confidentiality. It's rahasya. Krishna in 4.3 is saying rahasyam. This is rahasya. And this rahasya can only be understood by certain set of people. And who those certain set of people? He is also saying Bhakta Sime Sakha Cheti. Okay, so generally when we talk about Sri Radha Syam Sundar ki jai, Sri Jagannath Baldev Subhadra Mai ki jai, Sri Gauranitai ki jai. So whenever we talk about, say for example, mathematics, whenever you want to discuss about mathematics, you would like to understand this from a person who is actually have done some work on mathematics. You don't want to learn mathematics from anybody, right? In our colleges, in our engineering institutions, wherever we have gone, we have tried to understand the study of this, whatever we are trying to study, from a bona fide source, because they are capable of explaining it properly. Likewise, whenever you go forward and you probably read computer science, you try to understand it from a right computer science instructor. So likewise, this spiritual science, because here Krishna is saying the material body is comprising of these 5 things, and the subtle body is comprising of these 3 things, and this is nothing but science. So this science of spirituality has to be understood from the right source. And Krishna chooses to reveal himself by whoever he wants to reveal himself. Without Krishna's mercy, we cannot know about Krishna. Like say, for example, if you want to understand about computer science, you need to be at the mercy of the teacher to make you understand about the intricacies of computer science. Likewise, Krishna here, at the time when this Mahabharata was spoken, it was a battlefield, right? In the battlefield, there are many Rajashris. Yudhishthira Maharaj was a very potent king. He had the understanding of dharma, right? But here, Krishna is saying, Bhakto sime sakha cheti. Because towards second chapter, Arjuna started surrendering to Krishna. In the first chapter, Arjuna had doubts as to why he should not fight. In chapter 2, Arjuna started to become a devotee. And there, in 2.3 or 4, Arjuna sat down. He sat down, leaving the Gandiv, his bow, aside and waiting for Krishna to speak. And there is a point where he stops. So whenever the Shravanam has to happen, we have to stop talking. So till chapter 1, Arjuna was speaking. He was speaking how, if I kill these people, I cannot enjoy. If I kill these people, the kids who will be born from this will be polluted, Barna Sankar. And then he stopped and he let Krishna speak. So in order for somebody to speak the transcendental knowledge, the bhakta, in this example, Arjuna, had to stop. So likewise, Krishna is saying, Bhakto sime sakha cheti. And I can only choose to reveal this knowledge, this transcendental knowledge, to my bhakta and sakha, friend. So the question becomes, this transcendental knowledge, nowadays, this can be taken in a very different context. Because people give commentaries about Bhagavad Gita in a way to suit them. They do not recognize the importance of devotion. Because Krishna is saying, only a bhakta can understand me. Like say, for example, in this example of computer science, if a person who has you have done some maths work, and then he has come to a stage where he can understand algorithm. So there is a set of prerequisites based on which you can understand a subject. Likewise, this Bhagavad Gita cannot be truly understood in a complete fashion by anybody who is not a bhakta. So he's saying, so these 3 verses are very powerful verses, because Krishna is saying, I have told this millions of years ago to somebody, and that knowledge was going on, and this knowledge has to be acquired through parampara, and then just by parampara is not enough. You have to be a devotee, and it should be part of the parampara. So this Bhagavad Gita cannot be understood by anybody. And that's why Krishna is saying, this is a rahasya. He's saying, rahasyam heita uttamam. That means it is so powerful knowledge, and it is transcendental. It is it's rahasya. It's a mystery. Not anybody and everybody can understand. So that is where, let's try to break it down and recognize some of the activities Krishna did. Krishna was born and he was moved to Nandagram, where Nanda Baba and Yashoda Mai were there. And during the month of Kartik, the pastime of Damodar was done. So when all these things were going on, Yashoda Mai saw that the milk is boiling somewhere else and it's going to overflow. So he left Krishna and went there. So Krishna says that if this entire world, people have been searching for me, trying to look for me, but they still haven't understood me. And now I am with my mother. She is my closest servitor, in the sense she is serving me. But here, instead of serving me, she has left me and gone to the overflowing of the milk. So then Krishna becomes angry, then he goes out, and in the meantime, there is also a pastime where Krishna opens his mouth and he shows the entire Brahmand in his mouth. So, whoever Krishna chooses to reveal these pastimes, he will do. And he can only reveal all this to his devotees. If you are not a devotee, let's say for example in our house, for example, we have certain confidential things. Some things which has to be understood by certain set of people. It should not be understood by certain set of people. Would you be telling those, mystery, confidential thing to anybody and everybody? Because it will not be understood properly. It will be exactly understood how the sixth blind man, last week we discussed, the blind man comes, they have never seen an elephant in their life, they check out the tail and they think it is a snake. They check out the ear, they think it is a fan. They will not have. So if you say that the tail of the elephant is like a snake, it is actually correct information. But if you say that elephant is like a snake, it is incorrect information. So there is this little nuance. Last time we discussed about pratyaksha praman, seeing in our eyes. Even seeing in our eyes, there are illusions. Then anuman praman, like this blind people, they're thinking that it can be snake. It has false. But when we do swing, we hear it from the devotees who have acquired the knowledge and have come through parampara, as in 4.2 Krishna is mentioning, evam parampara prapta. Then only it can be valid. And then you don't have to do any test or experiment to really find out. That is what is called sabda praman. So anuman praman is like the blind people. Pratyaksha praman is like you put a pencil inside a water, but the pencil appears bent, right? But that's not true. The pencil is not bent. Pencil is still a straight line. Anuman praman can also be false. Anuman praman is false. Pratyaksha praman is false. Pratyaksha, by seeing, the pencil is appearing bent, but it is straight. Anuman praman, like the blind people, it can be. But when the sabda praman happens, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead reveals himself through the knowledge acquisition process in Bhagavad Gita as it is, where you take the word by word and understand it properly. Because before I read this Bhagavad Gita, I have read other Bhagavad Gitas. But this rahasya, this confidential knowledge, this aspect of bhaktosi me sakhacheti, I have never heard in this clarity, because Srila Prabhupada has taken word by word and have dissected it so correctly. And that is when you get the right understanding. If we think about, some of the people who have interacted with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for example. In Varanasi, there was a Vedanta expert, right? Prakashananda Saraswati. He was a Vedanta expert. He had the understanding of Vedas, but he has added the commentary. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Banaras went out on a Harinam, he knew that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was Nimai Pandit. He understood the scriptures, but in spite of understanding the scriptures, he has gone and he's doing Harinam. So he invited him for a discussion. In that invitation, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sat at a lower level. And then he said, I am a fool. I cannot understand this. Because the Vedas, the Upanishads, are from the lotus lips of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, but when people add commentary to that, then I cannot understand. Because at that time, I become a fool. And because of those interactions, it became very clear that the essence of all of these, commentaries, dialogues, discussions, argument, is nothing but the chanting of the holy name. And if the chanting of the holy name is a way in which this is accessible to one and all, you don't have to understand Vedanta philosophy to understand the Supreme. So when this Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to South India, and this South Indian Brahman used to read Bhagavad Gita and crying, and he was holding Bhagavad Gita like this. when he was holding Bhagavad Gita like this, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to him and said, why are you crying? He said, I am reading and crying. So why are you reading and crying? He was holding Bhagavad Gita like this and reading and crying. He said, I cannot fathom in my mind that the Supreme Personality of Godhead can choose to become the charioteer of his friend. It's incomprehensible. He could have chosen to become anything, but he chose to become the Sarathi of his, and the sheer thought that he is a driver of the chariot is bewildering to me. And that is why, because of this humility from a Supreme Personality of Godhead, I am crying. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was not reading Bhagavad Gita, he was holding it upside down. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, you have understood the essence of Bhagavad Gita. So, Bhagavad Gita is such a scripture, you can understand, it's so simple that it can be understood by the simplest of the mind. But the people in this world are not simple. They cannot understand that how can the Supreme Personality of Godhead be so simple? So there must be something very complex. There must be something, very deep into it. So if it is not simple, trying to understand in a very simple manner of chanting the holy name in this age of Kali, where it is mentioned that Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama Kevalam, Kalo Nasteva, Nasteva, Nasteva Gati Anyatha. It is mentioned that in this age of Kali, the medicine is the chanting of the holy name, Kali Yuga, in this age. But we cannot understand that in a very simple way, because the Lord is very simple. Simple people like the South Indian Brahmin can understand the Lord, but big Vedanta scientists cannot understand the Lord. Because Lord chooses to reveal himself. If he wants somebody to understand him, he will choose to reveal himself. And the only way he can reveal himself is, as it is mentioned so powerfully, 4.3, Bhakta Sime Sakhacheti. He can only reveal himself if you are a devotee. If you are not a devotee, your understanding, I can't say it is incomplete. I can't say it is incorrect, but it will definitely be incomplete. Like say, for example, this is a classic example given by our senior brahmachari. They say, if gulab jamun is made, from the side room, you smell gulab jamun. You smell it is so nice, right? But is that enough to understand gulab jamun? No. Then you go, you see, it's golden red color, it's very soft. Just by seeing, is that enough to understand gulab jamun? Then you eat that. When you eat that, you recognize the look of gulab jamun, the smell of gulab jamun, you understand everything. And the classic example we always give is, in our old days, we used to get letters, right? Just by getting letters from our parents, do we understand our parents? No, we don't. There might be so many inaccuracies. There might be so many inconsistencies. Now, as the time progresses, we have FaceTime. With FaceTime, seeing our parents, can we understand our parents? No, we can't. Because they may be appearing very happy, but there might be something bothering them. So the real son who wants to serve the parent will go drive down and he will go take care of them for some time, massage their feet or massage their head and serve them. Then only you will understand the real. So it is mentioned that this letter example, where you think God is so and so from the letter itself, the example letter itself, they are jnanis, but actually they are not. They cannot understand fully. And the people who think that by seeing, this Paramatma, the yogis, they can understand. No. Only a bhakta, by serving the Lord in the Purna Purushottam personal form, can understand the Supreme. And the person who is a devotee and he has understood through devotion, he has got the yogic angle, he has got the karmic angle and jnana angle. But the jnana cannot understand that one. So if you have got eaten the gulab jamun, you have understood the essence of gulab jamun, the smell of gulab jamun, the texture of gulab jamun, the softness of gulab jamun. But if you have not eaten, you have a totally incorrect and incomplete understanding of gulab jamun. So the only way to understand the Supreme is through the disciplic succession, evam parampara praptam, 4.2, and 4.3, bhakta sime sakha cheti. And there is no other way to understand the Lord. If anybody is saying by meditating on this form and by reading so many things, because in this world we cannot pronounce Sanskrit properly because many of our kids have not gone through the Sanskrit education. Just because, do you think the God is so cruel that just because you do not know how to read Sanskrit, he will devoid you from his association? No, God is beyond all of these. And that's why it is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita somewhere that the people who get carried by the flowery language of Vedas, because it is written in Sanskrit and they can utter so many things, there will be people who will be uttering Sanskrit from everywhere, but they have not understood the essence. But the real essence is understood in this example, like the South Indian Brahmin, who is reading Bhagavad Gita upside down, but he has understood Bhagavad Gita. Bhakta sime sakha cheti. So the only way we can understand the Supreme is by doing some devotional service, by doing something which expresses our love for the Supreme. That's the only way. And the other ways are momentary, temporary, and it is full of incompleteness. So with that, I'd like to end here, open up for some questions and comments and reflections. 4.3, who should you take transcendental knowledge from? Evam parampara prapta. And how you should take it? You should take it as bhakta sime sakha cheti. 4.2, 4.3 will clarify our doubts when we meet the world, because the world is there to confuse us. But Krishna, Bhagavan Uvacha, 4.2, very clearly says evam parampara praptam, because it has to only come from parampara through the disciplic succession. That's only when the transcendental knowledge stays pure.